G'day and welcome to another episode of Ian Smissen's Photography. I'm down here on the south coast of Phillip Island shooting one of my favourite places in the world. These black basalt platforms fingering out into the turquoise sea and the white water rolling over the top of it and this beautiful pink coralline algae on the rocks. It's a wonderful combination of textures, shapes, colours and the power of the sea. And that's what I'm shooting today, Creativity Challenge number 21, Power. So what I'm starting with here is the trusty Pentax K-1, the Pentax 24 to 70mm lens, and a Nisi polarising filter on the front. The polarising filter is there just to take a little bit of the glare off the water to emphasise that beautiful turquoise colour. But the real challenge I have is trying to account for the huge exposure difference between the shadows on the dark rocks and the bright white water crashing over the top of them. With such active water flowing over the rocks and crashing over them, you can't shoot an HDR shot because you shoot a sequence of shots, you can't merge them together because the water is in completely different positions, the waves are in different positions, you've got different splash and so on. So I'm having to compromise by underexposing by about 1 2/3 stops so that I'm not overexposing the white water, but that should still allow me the chance of bringing back some of the shadows. There might be a problem if I go too low in trying to bring back those shadows, but dynamic range in this camera is so good that you can really pull 3 or 4 stops out of the shadows without it getting too noisy. So I'm hoping that's going to be okay. I'm starting off with a wide angle shot, and as you can see I've got the camera tilted down because I want to get most of the image being this angled coastline from the bottom left corner with the rocks and the white water in it down here, going all the way out across the rugged coastline and seal rocks in the background. So part of telling a story in your photography is to start with an establishing shot that gives people a feel of the environment and then to pick out some of the real highlights. I'm trying to eventually look for some shots of waves crashing up over the rocks, and that's going to be with a telephoto lens so that I can really zoom in on some of the highlights of the action. But I'm going to take a couple of these shots first and see how I go. I'm starting off with just the polarizer, and so I'm at ISO 100, f/18 and 1/20th of a second. My normal exposure would be at 1/6 to 1/8 of a second, but as I said, I'm 1 2/3 stops underexposing to not overexpose that white water. And I'm just waiting for a little bit more wave action because I really want to emphasize this line of white water around the dark rocks. And here we go, here's some waves now. Now if I have a look back at those, I'm quite happy with them, but what I really want to try and do now is to emphasize that white water. There's a little bit of texture on the surface of the water that I'd rather get rid of and just shoot the white water around the rock. So best way of doing that, blur the water, slow down the shutter speed. In order to do that, put on a neutral density filter, and I'm also just going to take the edge off the background sky. I want to darken that down a little bit. At the moment it's just a little bit too bright, so I'm going to put a 2-stop graduated neutral density filter on as well. So here's one we prepared earlier, the Nisi filter holder with the 3-stop neutral density filter in it and a 2-stop graduated neutral density filter. Pop that onto the front of the lens. And that's now giving me a shutter speed of half a second. And if I take that shot and have a closer look at that, I really like that. So now I'm going to switch over to a 70 to 200 millimeter lens, pop the polarizer on and see if I can pick out some highlight spots where the water is crashing over these rocks. Well, that's it for here.
Well, no, not quite. I came back later in the afternoon when it had got really wild and took a few more shots.
Well, that's it for here. If you've liked this video, please like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the little bell to be notified when I create new videos. And remember, pixels are free, so get out there and shoot more. Bye for now.